Hey darlings. On the street there were sounds of joyful commotion, the noise of approaching footsteps and calls, the barking of Naida's sheepdog. Nina Andreevna immediately understood that Dasha had come from school. After all, Naida was the only one who greeted her with this characteristic cheerful bark. A light smile flashed on Nina Andreevna's face when she thought about her daughter, and her sickly cheeks were even a little Poroo Veli runs in. Tori, Mommy, there is such a thing. You will never guess. Dasha slammed the heavy door with noise, and with an important look he continued. So you won't believe it, honey? You're repeating yourself? Nina smiled. Tell me now what happened there, but wait. First of all, take off your shoes and don't step on the clean floor. Today I did general cleaning, and secondly, Daria, what a mess you made. In her room again, it is also impossible. Dasha, pretending to be listening to her note, sat sideways in her room, trying not to turn her back to her mother. However, these strange movements did not escape to hide what telling the truth to Sol would be. It must still be the fact that the mother instantly notices any of her lies. It has been clear to Dasha since her kindergarten daughter demands this. When communicating with me, you always maintain complete honesty, otherwise our relationship will not be warm and friendly. In addition, I must inform you that I have a unique superpower. Like all first-year students, Dasha watched with great interest several films about superpowers. Humans, admiring their supernatural abilities to walk through walls and jump to enormous heights or emit electrical discharges. So the idea that her mother also has some kind of fantastic power enchanted Dasha. How cool. I have never said before that you are a Superman, although I have always suspected that you are extraordinary, like an X-Men superhero. My colleagues will be jealous when I tell them that my mother is a superhero. Say something in her mouth, but Nina Andreevna interrupted this stormy flow of childish fantasy. Daughter qualities that what you and your colleagues call superpowers, in fact, every person has them. You are no exception. You also have your own talents, although maybe you still don't know exactly what mine are, as you say. The superpower has helped me more than once, that my daughter can't wait to find out what a magical superpower is. Such a mother, vs. decided to take a long, solemn pause, finally feeling sorry for Dasha, languishing with impatience. She said, I can smell any lie with my nose. Any lie has a smell and I feel it well. Mom, Dasha said disappointedly, you deceived me. I thought it was true, like a superhero from a movie. Out of resentment, Dasha looked like she was about to cry, quietly hiding in her room. She stayed there until night, reading interesting books, hoping at the same time that Mom thinks she is doing her homework. Nina Andreevna's voice was heard outside the door. Daughter, start doing your homework and the books will not run away from you. Then I'll finish reading well. When I realized that I'm not sitting here doing my homework, after catching the broadcast, Dasha blushed. That's why I realized that I can smell any lie, even a silent lie about a silent lie. I can smell it. A kilometer away, Dasha looked at her mother and exclaimed, After all, you really are a Superman. Since then, she has been trying. Never lie to your mother about anything, even if sometimes it was not so easy for her to tell the truth, and now, when it was already useless to deny it, Dasha sighed and turned her back to Nina Andreevna with the words, Look at her face, mother. A large hole appeared at the bottom of the dress, almost halfway down the back. Practically Udin and involuntarily choked and said indignantly, Dasha, well, what is this? And at the very beginning of the school year, and your dress has already been unusable. For 6 months, my grandmother and I saved money so that at school you would have the best and highest quality. And then someone like you managed to do it. Dasha, embarrassed, silently tried to break her daughter's fence against the fence. You are almost an adult girl. You are years old and you still climb fences. Normal girls at that age don't. I don't behave like that if it were just mischief. But no, Dasha, I had to jump over the fence not for fun. But she was still embarrassed in front of her mother. I'll explain everything now. I'm not to blame. Now you sing. And Dasha, but then her grandmother, Ludmila Anatolyevna, entered the room. returning from the store with a convenient bag on wheels I always took Dasha with her for general shopping. Dasha's grandmother said happily, "Oh, my girls, I bought the most." Ashamed? And look, what did our beauty's dress turn into? Well, show me, grandmother. How decency she stood with her back to Ludmila Anatolyevna. However, unlike her daughter, she just smiled good-naturedly and said, "Oh, would that be a problem? Why make a fuss about it? It's okay. Am I yours now? I will sew the dress carefully. Not even the seam will be visible." And then Dasha's mother and grandmother came to their senses and asked in unison, "So what happened after all?" Dasha began to laugh in admiration at this synchronicity. It turned out so impressive. It was as if you had rehearsed this scene in advance. "Yes, stop joking. Talk about it. It has already become a dress today in our class. There were elections for who will be responsible for the day of self-government. And my candidacy was also proposed, and Svetka Demidova, when she found out about this, said such nasty things about me that Nina Andreevna shuddered and her face twitched. She again turned painfully gray. Dasha, however, did not notice this, and emotionally Jaku Ravastardi. She probably imagines that since her father is a cool businessman and her mother is all bathed in jewelry and sable fur coats, then she is allowed to swear people with impunity, and this is the reason why you climbed the fence. Mother, please listen until the end. The problem is that I know perfectly well what that word is and what it means. Of course, he could not tolerate such an insult. To beat this Svetka, and she started to run away from me. I followed her, and she was already far away. The fence was there. Well, if I had jumped, I would have reached it in no time. But my dress got stuck in the boards of the fence. Of course, it couldn't hold, and Grandma was the first to react. Well done. Dasha did everything right. I hope you still hit her." "No, Grannies, I couldn't reach her, but she is changing to Susalam." Indignant. "Don't you dare say these words anymore. Who taught you to express yourself like that?" And Ludmila Anatolyevna obviously didn't care what terms her granddaughter spoke about her attacker. The main thing is that Dasha is fine. "Justice," she said, showed her granddaughter a well-made gesture, and winked approvingly at Nina. Mom didn't like it very much. What kind of example are you setting for the girl? In their place, otherwise life won't feel like honey for the girl. One day she will become an adult, and you and I won't always be able to solve her problems. I'll be years old, yes, and you, Ninotchka, are far from years old. The argument between mother and grandmother about the proper methods of raising the armed forces continued. And Dasha, meanwhile, mischievously dressed in home clothes, trying to get her mind off school problems. She started her homework and was still very worried about the question that Svetka involuntarily reminded her of today. Returning to the room, Dasha asked her mother why I still don't know anything about my father. "Me about what happened to you. He died, did not get married. I am an educated girl, and I know perfectly well that the word bastard refers to children born out of wedlock." Nina and Ludmila exchanged worried glances at Dasha. It was clear that the question was being serious, and they had not courage to answer no. "Your father is alive and well," Nina responded with restraint, "but let's talk about him a day later. You are not old enough to understand why this happened, but for now start your homework." But Dasha never managed to sit down to do her homework. The girl listened with all her might. Attention could hear the voices of his mother coming from the room and grandmother's, but in their muffled intonations little could be understood, and only at the end of the conversation could you hear Ludmila Anatolyevna exclaiming softly, "You are doing the wrong thing, Nina, that you are hiding the truth about her father from Dasha. You think she has no right. You have to know besides. It wasn't your fault how everything happened." Dasha had already gone to bed when Ludmila Anatolyevna approached her silently. "You are still awake. How can you fall asleep? Grandma, am I in?" Thought, to which there was no answer, but Ludmila understood without words what topic haunted her granddaughter. Of course, her father's secret, granddaughter. Not everything in this life is as beautiful as they say in books, especially in fairy tales. You like them. Well, Dasha was offended. What fairy tales am I no longer small? If you want to know about this for Mom, don't tell me I'm here one of these days. I read a book about Queen Margot and fairy tales. In fact, these works are a little early. Well, maybe you understand more clearly this way. Imagine that your mother was waiting for her prince, as if she were the future queen. She waited and waited, but there was no prince. She didn't give up hope, and here he is, and they had the kind of love you can only read about in books. However, Dasha did not hear this anymore because she fell asleep happily. Grandmother's peaceful murmurs with a smile on her face, sad for spring. Ludmilla kissed Dasha silently on the floor. Cheek and also carefully. My poor father, who didn't know it, went out with the onset of winter. Dashka's school days were marked by serious changes one day. She said in her usual way with an important look, "Mommy, you won't believe it." Although Nina Andreevna saw that this time her daughter was clearly in a good mood, she tore her dress on the wall as a joke. "Enough, Mom. It's not funny. It's been months and you still remind me of nonsense, and in general, Grandma made that hole so wonderfully. The dress looked like new. It was just a magic artisan." So this is what I want to tell you. I want to tell you about a talent contest our school announced. The guys and I decided that our class, as part of this event, will make a production based on the work of the Republic skit. Wow, very commendable. Let me guess, you will play the role of the main character. A little embarrassed, Dasha replied. Well, not exactly. Of course, in fact, we are only going to represent a small excerpt from the book. I'm going to sing the orphan song. Well, do you remember this one? The pitiful one. The one from orphanages that I've read by heart since childhood. But I've already learned it. Mother, explain to me what does the word homeless mean, and how do they end up in orphanages? Nina began to meticulously explain the meaning and essence of such a phenomenon as homeless children in Russia. However, during her passionate narration of the historical jungle, Dasha, seeing that the conversation was going in the wrong direction, tactfully interrupted the mother. That is, if I street children got it right, they are those who do not have a mother and father, and are sent to orphanages and orphanages. In general, you understand, daughter, there is one thing I don't like about this conversation. It's all about street children. It's already sad in my soul. Sit down. I'd better do my homework, but I'm going to lie down. I don't feel well. Why haven't you gone to the doctor yet? I asked you a long time ago. Give it to me now. There is no time to work. There is so much to do. Plus, I have no housework to do that I can't afford the next day's sick night. When Dasha and her classmates, they were screamingly rehearsing a touching scene from the life of Berniki, worried Elena Nikolaevna. Her teacher Savalyeva Dasha's skirt. The girl urgently ran into the hall. After her, your grandmother called and told you to go home urgently. Your mother was taken away by ambulance. Dasha ran home, forgetting to fasten the buttons on her coat in fright, and the piercing wind literally sucked in what happened. But when Dasha ran home, she did not find her grandmother. Instead, the girl was met by her neighbor, Aunt Raya, trying in vain to hide the sad expression on Dashka's face. Quickly rushed to Ludmilla Anatolyevna's hospital, and Dasha remained whole night in the cold hospital corridor, waiting for at least some news from the operating room for a severe signal. Warning that strangers could not enter only increased the tension of his desperate expectation. The doctor only left the operating room when it was starting to get light. His voice was monotonous and tired. We did everything we could. Unfortunately, our capabilities are not unlimited. We are not as advanced in technology as in the city hospital. Furthermore, the patient should have seen a doctor a long time ago. The meaning of these words didn't really reach Dasha's tired and scared doctor. So when my mother went home, the nerves would be released from her, who was falling down from exhaustion. They couldn't stand the doctor. Yes, there is no one to let go. So you no longer have a mother? Girl, she died. Ludmilla Anatolyevna screamed desperately, holding on to the wall and trying not to fall. Dasha, as if slowly moving film images, watching motionless as the nurses crowded around her grandmother, bringing her back to her senses. The sun around her became somehow unreal and blurry, and only the surgeon's words in her head continued to sound as if they were repeating the reproduction. No, you no longer have a mother. Dasha's abnormal condition quickly caught the attention of the nurses, one of to whom the girls shouted worriedly. Her nose was bad. Quickly from the pungent odor that hit her nose, Dasha immediately came to her senses and saw her grandmother crying. The girl ran to her, hugged her, and also began to cry. Cry, my girl, cry, or your poor heart might not take it. And wasn't it her illnesses were special? She lived for herself, and now appendicitis has dragged her to the grave. Leave Dasha behind. From the minute Dasha found out that she no longer had mother, your life was divided into before and after. Full of happiness, carefree childhood days instantly became a thing of the past. The nebulous future frightened by its threatening uncertainty, unbearable for a young girl still in her teens. It was just a matter of natural longing for his mother, who had passed on to another world. The girl had to experience the injustice of life almost immediately, so she became an orphan. A loud knock on the door came literally an hour after Dasha and her grandmother returned from the hospital. Well, that he got there at the wrong time with the last of his strength, said the distressed Ludmila, without waiting for an offer to join a professional employee of the guardianship authorities with. We entered an unlocked house with an important air. We have just received information that Nina Andreevna Savalyeva, who lives here and has a minor daughter, has died. We arrived at the right address. The arrogant officialdom of these Damocles, the indignation of Ludmila. So you have come to the right address, but it is not very clear why what you need is needed, which means we need to look at one of the employees. The girl was left an orphan, and since she has no other relatives, she will have to be sent to an orphanage in the sense that there are no relatives when. Here I am, your dear grandmother. Ludmila shouted so sternly at the arrogant official to take your grandfather's house, from which they wanted to become completely insolent before your mother had time to die, and you were already caught up in the knowledge. She tried to order the employees on their own, but they resisted, and one of them was a dyed blonde. Stop this shenanigans. You're disturbing our work. I'm going to call the police now. She was about to dial the police number on her phone, but then Aunt Raya came in. What kind of noise are you making, Luda? Who will call the police? Was the employee angry? Looked at her. Who are you? What are you interfering with? I'm a friend of this family. I live next door. Aunt Raya replied in a calm voice. Of course, it's not difficult to guess why you came, but I must note that you chose the wrong moment, and so Dasha has a close relative, the grandmother, the blonde cheeky, sarcastically interrupted the neighbor Ludmila, the grandmother who may soon be considered a suitable educator for Dasha. So the girl is subject to removal and placement in an appropriate educational institution. Coin clerical phrases. The evil employee made Dasha furious. Get out of here, you evil ones. I won't wander into your shelters. The employee, not expecting such a decisive rejection from the teenager, was surprised for a few seconds. Silent for a band photo. But what's going on? They've gotten the kid to the point where he's talking about some kind of story. He's talking about shelters and he's hysterical. Aunt Raya sternly interrupted her to the point of hysterics. Dasha, she just lost her mother. You don't understand the current state of the child and how, to put it mildly, you appeared at the wrong time. Here also to intimidate her that you are threatening to separate her from her mother's grandmother. I will not let you say goodbye. Immediately call your superiors so that they can resolve the matter. Along the way, you still have the right to freely enter a private house. Trying to adhere to a strict official tone. Aunt Raya named the officer several other official violations committed during the visit. The officials clearly did not expect this noise and muttered to call. Let's leave now, however. After Nina Andreevna's funeral, Dasha will still have to go to the orphanage. Finally they left, and Aunt Raya exclaimed, God, where do they come from? They are so special that they are specially recruited there according to the principle the worse the better. Complete chaos. What heartless people. Well, Raisa, you shave them right. Very good, Ludmila Anatolyevna admired. I didn't think you were like that. You know, the neighbor straightened up proudly so. After all, the years of work in the prosecutor's office were not in vain. There as a cleaner? But I learned a lot in years while wearing a cloth. Yes, I am now a lawyer consultant. Dasha's grandmother even hoped that the guardians had changed their minds about taking her granddaughter to her grandfather's house. However, Dasha was not reassured by her grandmother's optimism. She still waited in fear every day for a knock on her granddaughter's door. They won't come. They were already trying to calm her down, Ludmilla. Probably they were afraid of what was wrong with them. The performance of duty would fall. Look how Raya scolded them. Well, it's a joke. The girl has won. Grandmother, they will put her in an orphanage. This is a violation of the law. In fact, don't be afraid. You will stay with me. My pension is enough for both of us. In addition, her survivor's pension will disappear when a week and a half has passed. Dasha even forgot a little about the evil guardians who scared her, and then suddenly they appeared prim not at her house, but straight to school for class, waving some official papers at the surprised teacher, the blonde. The officer Nikolaevna coined threateningly, trying to stay calm. Dasha's grandmother already knows, and there is no need to warn her. Why are we still taking Dasha to her grandfather's house? Now, according to the law and order of these, she seemed to have grown cold. She couldn't move or say anything. A colleague sitting with her at the table tried to bring her to her senses by pushing her aside, but Dasha did not react. She only woke up with a high-pitched voice. From the guardianship official Savliev, why are you frozen? Let's move. Get ready and let's go to your new home. Don't worry, the house is beautiful and big. You will obviously like it. Mocking joke, and she giggled approvingly. Dasha, hurry up, the car is already waiting. Dasha had no choice but to obey now. Already in accordance with the requirements formalized by law, Elena Nikolaevna, not knowing how to help her, asked the employee what kind of orphanage she was sent to. What is grandmother's address? Did the students fill the hallway? All of them. They, senior and third-year students, watched with bewilderment and fear as Dasha was taken away by two stern aunts, as if they had accompanied her before going to prison. One of the teachers told them that you will. Arova and a bad student will also go to the orphanage. The already frightened children fell silent, still not fully believing what was happening. Dasha, already on the street, turned around, looked into the classroom windows and saw Elena Nikolaevna crying. The teacher waved his hand goodbye and Dasha said goodbye quietly. Prose what happened next. Dasha vaguely remembered that the road was long. After a few hours of travel, a small village appeared in the distance where her grandfather's house was. The institution consisted of 3 buildings, and impressed with its monumentality against the backdrop of small private houses arrived, reported children of different ages, residents of the orphanage, and a crowd ran out into the street to meet the new girl during the break, bombarding Dasha with various questions. They seemed to be trying to shout to each other, hello, what's up, your name? Where are you from? And your mom and dad drink too. How old are you? Dasha was surprised by such a stormy reception. The boys accompanied the newcomer to the main building of the institution where she would. Familiar with the teaching staff, the teachers greeted her with friendly smiles like an honored guest. One of them, well-groomed and well-dressed, put her arm around Dasha's shoulders and said in a warm voice, hello, Daria. We are pleased to welcome you to your new home, which, like all of us, we hope will organize a mini for you rehearsal. You are probably hungry from the road. The children, who will show Dasha the dining room, can I, Aleftina Borisovna? One of high school students volunteered. Yes, Antonov, of course, and then take the girl to my office after the tour. Aramevsko, that the employees' evil aunts. Interestingly, they did not lie when they praised this institution. The buildings were constructed in a well-thought-out manner. Educational buildings were conveniently linked to residential buildings and orphanages, as in the Republic. From shkit and small cozy rooms in which 3 students live, Dasha did not even expect that Dima would be more surprised than how the children here treated each other after reading about the harsh and hostile morals that reign in orphanages. She imagined a completely different picture, but in Aramevsko. In the orphanage here, everything was completely different. Everyone was friendly. The elders did not offend them. In general, the principal, a friend, assistant Larissa, immediately appeared. She was several years older than Dasha and offered to help the new girl Aleftina Borisovna. Can I be her mentor? Okay, Larissa. I hope you can handle this. The manager gave his consent look, and don't let her down, Aleftina Borisovna. I have already given a reason to doubt myself, Laurie exclaimed with amusing theatrical intonations. Oh, manager snickered. All the next week that Dasha followed. Larissa was behind and met Dashka. You won't get lost with me. It's not just that you offered to help you. You remind me of my younger sister. In total, my mother has 6 of us, but we are scattered in different grandfathers' houses here, except me, only my younger brother. He is now in the 2nd grade, but as soon as I let him out, I will definitely meet everyone. Dasha from Rock. I asked my new friend what happened with her mother. Larissa just laughed sadly. Yes. Everything is fine with her as always. She drinks continuously and doesn't need anything else. I won't be surprised if she doesn't remember what she has. We have children, and we never visit here. Think about it. Dasha gradually got used to her new living conditions. And after a few weeks, this meeting with her grandmother remained forever in Dasha's memory because it was the last time they saw each other. Another, Grandma's voice seemed heavy. She was clearly tormented by shortness of breath. Dasha, I was already afraid that I would not live to see our meeting, as your teacher told me that these vipers from your care dragged you here straight school, and immediately you started to feel sick. Thank God Paradise helped me all these days. She was always there and here. Come too. She helped me. Since you live here, everything is fine. The children don't offend you. No, Grandma, don't worry. We are all very friendly here and the teachers here are good. It's not bad here, although it's unusual. While I still want to go home, oh dear, I don't think it's possible that we have succeeded. After all, you will be handed over according to the law. So now you will have to bear it. Only after years we will live together again when you are released. But this was not destined to happen. A month and a half after they met, their neighbor Aunt Raya unfortunately came to Dasha with a gift. She had to give the girl a sad thing, Dasha, from Naida at her grandfather's house. When she came back after that encounter of hers, she immediately fell ill. And a few days later she was gone. Immediately? You could have called the manager about this, Dasha. I'm sorry, but you probably should have. I'll tell you right away. But I was scared for you, and you had to go through so much. I'm not a stranger to myself. Dasha's last words fell on deaf ears. The only thing that occupied her now was the bitterness of losing her grandmother. So now I'm completely an orphan. Homeless Aunt Raya tried to somehow calm her down. No need to say that. After all, you are not a street child. You have me. You can always trust me. You understand? Best friends. Furthermore, there is an important moment. Dasha is crying again. She ignored the neighbor's vague hints, and they began to say goodbye. Keep it to yourself. Luda and Nina bought it in advance. They were going to save it for their birthday, but it's not a gift. I managed to find you yesterday when I was cleaning your house. Call me as soon as you need anything. Thank you, yes. I definitely turned a few days before my mother passed away. She and her grandmother, apparently they simply forgot to give it as a gift, but it doesn't matter anymore. In the box the cell phone was included a photo where Dasha was with her mother. Her heart had hurt again from unbearable melancholy. Aunt Raya at least promised to visit Dasha more often until she was in a hurry to come only to call during the week. Short but sincere conversations with a former neighbor warmed the soul. The girls were already accustomed to the day-to-day life of the orphanage, but still missing his past life. One day, Aunt Raya finally arrived. Although I didn't inform Dasha about her visit, I finally got the opportunity to visit him on business. So I stopped by to see you at the same time, and you really became a beauty as you grew up admiring and surprising Aunt Raya vs repeated how much more beautiful the girl was. Our Dasha was a little embarrassed, but she heard compliments on her appearance. With pleasure, She began to notice that high school boys were now looking her with interest, although she hasn't even told Larissa about it yet. And then Dasha asked Aunt Raya a question that she clearly didn't expect. Remember the last time we saw each other? You were talking about some important moment, approximately. I think you meant it's probably about me, Dad. Yes. Tell me now. Ashisha. Aunt Raya suddenly pretended to be in a hurry. Dashel. It's time for me to run. Let's go another time. No. You won't go anywhere until you explain it to me. Vs. Sighing heavily, Dasha's former neighbors settled into a cozy room where the children were meeting with their guests. I don't even know where to start. After all, there is nothing special to tell in our village. There was a small factory producing some spare parts. It was where Nina worked as an accountant, and suddenly Kirill appeared. It seems that they sent him to our village to work at the factory. She and Nika got along well, in general, and he was years younger than her. Aunt Raya faltered, as if she didn't know what to say next. She was intrigued by the sequel. So what happened next? In fact, there are two versions of what happened. According to some sources, Nina and Kirill broke up because their ill-wishers separated them. There are such personalities, don't feed them with bread, but don't let them write all sorts of nasty things about each other people. So they blamed him and believed this nonsense. But there is another option, someone. Then one day he said that Kirill's father, having found out about their relationship, became furious and personally met with Nina, threatened her, demanded that she leave his son, and she had no love for them. Just like in the movies, the whole village was jealous, some in a friendly way, and others in a bad way. Music. The meeting time came to an end and Aunt Raya left, leaving Dasha with painful thoughts for a whole week. She could not get this conversation out of her head and finally told Larissa about her experiences. And what are you going to do now? I don't even know if I should look for my father. It may not be worth it, but if he really ran away in a cowardly way, what kind of father is he after all? Then you don't if you don't need someone like him for free. Let's say he was found. Well, maybe he will give him a little money, and besides, it won't be enough for him to take care of him in his old age. Forced, you know. My mother just likes to have a good drink and she doesn't care about everything else, including her children, but as she gets older, she'll remember us in an instant. I'm definitely saying she will. Demand that I keep your Obi alive, just don't wait for it. In vain. So the spring days began. One of them, Aleftina Borisovna, almost flew into Dasha and Larissa's room like a bullet. The girls have all their hope in you. The sponsors are coming to us and we urgently need to impress them. Well, there is a way to greet them in a special and creative way so that we don't remain indifferent. It remained, but I know that this is my idea for you for creativity. Don't worry, Aleftina Borisovna. We won't let you down, assured Larissa. Now let's quickly bring together the primary school students and Dasha and me. Come up with something for the sponsors. We need it with all our hearts. They become generous with this Larasaka, quite rightly. The manager nodded his head in approval. Well done. You're right about how you graduated. You will be a valuable person. Yes, now, Laurie murmured softly so that Aleftina wouldn't hear. But I have nothing to do. Dasha heard her words and looked at her with interest. We'll talk later when this mess with sponsors is over, Larissa told her in a whisper and smiled mysteriously. Dasha's friends were extremely interested in the tips. Even the next important event aroused less interest in her. In addition, for the students, the grandfather was at home. The arrival of important people was common. They came often and the children were always ready to receive beloved guests in just half an hour. She and Larissa got together. A happy crowd of young people. Residents of the orphanage, as you know, children make the most favorable impression. A delegation of people reached important people. The children immediately greeted them with beautiful greetings and even a small cheerful performance. The guests were very impressed by the warmth, creative welcome. And the main part of the ceremony began, the giving of expensive gifts to the students. It was known to the children that, according to the letter, gifts go first to the orphanage fund. Of the delegation, members personally presented everything. This time gifts directly to the children. As gifts there were tablets, one of which Dasha received at the moment when the sponsor gave her an expensive gadget. Their eyes met, and Dasha seemed to know this man in a strange way, and the man himself looked at her carefully, but here they called him Kirill Vasilyevic. There were extra pills left, yes. Great, so let's give them to Elena Borisovna. Let them be like bonuses that she will give to the best students. That will be done, Kirill Vasilyevic. The manager happily assured him that the guests were seen off with the same friendliness as they were received by Alevtina. She was clearly satisfied with the result of the visit. How lucky we were with our sponsors if it weren't for them. We still have here the antediluvian furniture, the repairs, the modern technologies, all thanks to these helpful people. Of course, we always have to organize the friendliest possible welcome for them. The manager began sorting out the remaining gifts. I finally took care of their lives. Come on, I'll show you my secret place. Now we don't need to make this a mystery. Anyway, Larissa led her friend along the path for a long time and brought her to some old building. In Russia, workshops were located here. The boys lowered birdhouses and the girls sewed aprons. But then Alevtina decided that we need these skills, it's really no use. Now she says that she will resume the work of these workshops. They just need to do repairs here. But that's when it will be. Thank God I will have already graduated. I don't want to make aprons. What profession do you want? Teach Dasha. Ilari, calm down, Lara. You promised me an interesting conversation. I'll tell you everything now. So friend, I want to warn you about the future. You really don't count on going to university. They don't really accept us from orphanages there. We like them. Something like the second varieties. Most of the girls who graduate will take a sewing or hairdressing course, although I, as you already know, don't want to be a seamstress. And whoever you want, look, Larissa showed her friend a beautiful leaflet on glossy pages. Spectacular clothes and cosmetics sparkled. Girls, it's about a beauty contest. But is it really there? You need to look your best, makeup, cool clothes, perfect styling, haircut. It's all expensive, money. I'll find everything already thought out, just to win competition. And there are already so many perspectives that will open up. Well, Lara, where do you get the confidence that you will win? And for now, it's none of your business. Larissa smiled good-naturedly. Maybe I'll tell you later, Dasha. I want to tell you right away that you can count on me. I will always help in any way I can. Keep my phone number. We will call each other by phone. His true character traits were efficiency and responsibility. Furthermore, she was very erudite in various areas of knowledge. Not only got excellent grades in all subjects, but also read popular scientific literature and periodically surprised her teachers with the knowledge she possessed. I heard from there. She secretly told her friend Dasha that she would later be approved, support me, of course, upon learning that a student of her institution will become a participant in no less than a regional beauty contest. Alevtina Borisovna was delighted in our duty to support ours. Larachka, after all, she is one of the best students. I really hope that she wins the competition with her. Larissa was waiting for victory, and many students on the day of the competition at the District Cultural Center didn't even have enough space. For all her fans, everyone who had to stay in the street happily sang Lara is the best. Those in the hall unfurled beautiful signs in support of Larissa and loudly applauded each of her appearances. Maybe it was this atmosphere of complete unity, of a lot of fans around this participant who made the right impression on the judges, but Larissa won. Dasha happily lied to her from the audience, looking at the crown on her head shining in the light of the spotlight, and Larissa couldn't wait to share her joy with her friend. Photographers and publication correspondents hovered around Larissa, and it looked very impressive. But Dasha suddenly thought that it was not what she would like for herself. Of course she wanted to be a friend, but she herself is not yet focused on taking risks in the other person's plans. Grandfather's students at home. An impression so strong that many of them literally. I was captivated by the idea of also winning a beauty contest. A little later, Larissa graduated from Aramivskoy. They called each other periodically, and it seemed that Larissa was doing well without her faithful friend Dasha in the orphanage. Less time-consuming, and now she only dreamed of graduating here as quickly as possible. Years passed, and now this moment was already close. Dasha counted on a good education, preferably, of course, a higher education. She shared his plans and dreams with Barino, who, to the surprise of the university, responded, "This is of course good, and we are trying to help our graduates as much as we can with admission, but firstly, our possibilities are far from unlimited, and secondly, working professions are also important. Not all teachers can be all this prose of life." Dasha already understood for a long time, but she still wanted the director Tina Borisovna to support her. "But I have good data in all subjects. My chances of entering the institute are quite high from these given arguments." The director even grimaced high level. "It's not like that, simple girl. I'll tell you how there's not a very good spirit on admissions committees. Orphanage universities love a red certificate for you. It will not be enough. And even if you are very povet, and you will have to live on something during your studies, housing and other expenses, we will not pay for those." That Dasha was ready to cut. "There is nothing to count on." Aleftina took a stack of different papers from the table, took out some kind of document, and gave it to Dasha. "Read and choose. These are the only real options." Dasha began to read aloud. "The universal hairdresser Sri." The assistant cook was as if the manager was pursing her lips again in disgust. "This is something like a boy. Doing chores in the kitchen seems more respectable, but I don't want to work under the orders of the cook and call or scribble all day on an Aleftina sewing machine. I seem to be very tired of this conversation. Off for you. In fact, we don't need to drag our students after Savliev's graduation. You are not the only one here. After all, there are many of us and there are few teachers. All of us, Nanny, must not like the proposal. Options. Spin it however you want." Dasha looked at the head with obvious hostility and disappointment. It seemed that that kind and beautiful Lady Aleftina appeared before her at the time of dating Agave. Now she was more like those terrible vipers, whose officer Dasha ended up in this institution, a werewolf. "You under the guise of teacher Aleftina Borisovna, but you were a role model for me." Dasha soon came out of the walls. "Aramevsko's girlfriend comes in and settles in. You can even stay with me for now. I paid the rent for the apartment 6 months in advance, so you don't stay. I have to worry about finding housing for now. If so, I will help you with your work." And she helped a lot. In just a few days, Larissa told her friend to quickly prepare for an interview. "Come on, there's a good vacancy for you. The salary there really isn't much, but it's not bad for starting a career, yes, and the company is solid." Larissa's fighting spirit confused Dasha a little, and the vacancy seemed like a friend said that she is somehow very responsible, cool company, career growth. "Dasha, why are you frozen?" a friend shouted at her. "While you crow is here. Do you think the vacancy will be closed? These places don't stay unoccupied for long. So then, get ready for C candidates quickly, and in general, I'm still running with you like a disabled bag, but it won't be long. I won't have such an opportunity soon. There won't be, because during the time we haven't seen each other, I made good progress in developing my skills. I'm about to do it. They'll offer me a contract abroad, and then I'll go to another country for several years." Larissa suddenly jumped up from her chair, walked gracefully around the room, and said, "Dasha, if you knew what value I represent to the modeling business, now there is a tendency not to default. Beauties and in the bright and unusual, that's how I am lucky for you, Lara. Yes, it's not a question of luck. I just look at life soberly, and I don't believe in fairy tales, and if I see an opportunity, one take it. So about this vacancy, I've got sure this is what you need." Larissa was right. Dasha immediately liked this work. The team warmly welcomed her colleagues quickly, focusing on the nuances of the work. She quickly progressed in her work, but seemed to be preparing to show more than just professional interest in Dasha. Of course, the pretty Dasha had admirers before, but these were only the boys from the orphanage, and here the big boss, although he is only years older than her, is already so successful. The attention of such a suitor is very flattering for her. But her colleagues were extremely irritated by Dasha and did not notice that this became the subject of a heated discussion in Larissa's smoking rooms. "She is talking about her new admirer. So far she has not spoken. Meanwhile, Jaeger has already begun to openly court Dasha, and we are going to a new cafe on the embankment today. According to rumors, they do the best hot chocolate in our city. It's almost the same as cocoa. I don't really like it. I understood why everyone loves him so much. They forgot about cocoa, but at least you like ice cream and dessert. They are great there too. Of course I love him. Dasha smiled to the fullest. Sitting in a cozy cafe, they want to have a walk along the embankment. Dasha's gentleman told himself so many interesting things about his career. His father was a big businessman, owner of 3 prosperous companies, and Dasha told Igor about his successful family that she felt strange. She told herself about Casa du Avu, and only their romantic relationship was no longer a secret to anyone. Something unheard of. Dasha one day was filled with happiness. One of her colleagues, Marina, casually commented, "Dasha, wake up. He already has idiots like you, a carriage and a small cart. He doesn't need you. He will use you and throw it away like a boring toy." Dasha flatly refused to believe you. Marina, only envy says that you are lying, accepting Jaeger's offer to have a romantic candlelit dinner at his house. Dasha had no idea what this could lead to. This little house was bought by my father so I could get out of here as quickly as possible. Wow, this little house has never happened in my life. I have not seen such a luxurious dwelling, and the house is small, but as it is comfortable, her imagination involuntarily ran wild. She made an offer for him to stay here the whole night. She did not doubt for a long time. Spend a few more stormy nights at his house. Dasha was in 7th heaven, and only Lariska's arguments made her come to her senses. "You are a stupid girl. You got involved with a swindler. It would be better if you told me about him right away. I would have warned you. He has a swindler and a scoundrel written on his face." Dasha wanted to oppose something, but Larissa was adamant. "Say what you had there." I understood well that everything had already happened. The meeting place was right in front of the windows of the company where Dasha worked, so she had to speak in moderation. But Larissa did not hold back. "Your emotions." "Dasha, what the hell? You are a fool, reckless. I thought these Turgenev young ladies were extinct a few centuries ago. You generally understand that you can get pregnant, but Dasha hoped that a possible pregnancy would not. It would be a departure for Jaeger, but on the contrary, it would only be for the better. But if I find out I'm pregnant, that will only speed up ours marriage." The naive girl had no idea that he didn't even think about marrying her. One day, entering her office without knocking, she was horrified to find Igor kissing Marina. "That's what?" Marina laughs sarcastically. "Dasha, you should have guessed that Igor is in love with you." It seems he didn't care at all that Dasha caught him at the crime scene in a bored tone. He replied, "Dasha, let's just not get hysterical. You and I actually agree that we had an open relationship. We didn't have that agreement." "Yes, well, that means I forgot to tell you. Listen, what were you thinking there, that I would marry you or something?" Smiling condescendingly, Jaeger left the office. Marina followed him the next morning. Jaeger ordered Dasha to go to his office, strictly marking every word he said to her. "Dear, giving Solna, you were fired due to your inconsistency with your work. So be it. We will write at our request. We will not spoil your future prospects. If you want to stay with our company, the only thing we can do is to offer you. This is the position of a cleaner, exactly for an orphanage." Dasha just wanted to run out of the office so as not to hear this bullying anymore. But Igor, it seems, hasn't finished insulting her yet. "You idiot from the orphanage, you thought seriously that I would take her as my wife. Get out of here." When a tearful Dasha ran home, Larissa was even scared. "But you have no face. Tell me what happened." After listening to her friend's sad monologue, she sighed. "This is all to be expected, of course, but don't be discouraged, friend. We are afraid of difficulties in orphanages. Shall we invent something? Let's move forward. There is nowhere to break." Lara, "It seems that I am still in Dasha's position. It didn't seem that the pregnancy was confirmed by the doctor until the 7th month. She somehow managed to survive with temporary jobs, but soon they stopped hiring her even for part-time work. Seeing Dasha's impressive belly, everyone categorically refused to contact the lady who was She is about to give birth, and besides everyone in addition to the problems, there is also the imminent departure of your faithful daughter Dasha. Sorry, but I can't lose the contract I was offered. I have already signed it and am now bound by the circumstances. Make this guy pay child support, do a DNA test, fix the kid, and let him pay now. Otherwise, he took pleasure and went into the bush. Would call Jaeger to responsibility, he would simply laugh at her, and even her father, an influential businessman, would probably cause trouble for the girl. Well, I've been looking at the belly for almost months now, which means it's for you and not for alimony. Yes, I will say everywhere that I don't know you, and you can be sure that they will believe me everywhere and demand proof. They won't leave, or I'll call the police. Dasha, of course, understood that she could no longer count on Jaeger's love. But the fact that he was simply ready to trample her into the earth was an extremely sad surprise. To her, as if thinking with her about her father's unborn baby in her belly, gave Dasha Laura a light kick. He didn't even hear me. He didn't even hear me. He said such nasty things to me. What did I do until I found a scoundrel who managed to fall in love with him? And, my dear friend is called Evil Love. You will love a goat and listen to the goat. You know what? Or maybe you. Return to your native village until your son is there and the air is fresh, and in general I'm leaving Dasha. You will have to leave this apartment. The owner said that Larissa put it up for sale. She helped her friend a little with money for the first time, and when she left she started crying. We will meet again, Dasha. Don't be bored. Dasha also couldn't hold back her tears as she followed the slender and risky silhouette with her eyes. It was difficult for her to imagine what happened next because she didn't even know if the old village house was still intact, but arriving in the village and making sure the house was intact and unharmed calmed down a little. The key to the house was found in a small hiding place under the balcony door. Not without difficulty in opening the fragile old man to live in, and for what? The money donated by Larissa will run out before you can blink one eye, and then her son at an irregular time is also going to be sent to an orphanage. There was a knock on the door Dasha can't stand. She just shouted, "Come in." She hoped that it was Aunt Raya who had come, although she had no idea if Lita was alive. And if so, she still lived here. However, a man entered the house. Seeing Dasha sitting helplessly on the floor, he immediately helped her get up, sat her down on the sofa, and asked, "Excuse me." I can see that Nina looked in amazement at the man who obviously knew her mother, but that wasn't all. She had seen him before. It was then that her grandfather gave her and the other students a gift without pills at home. Nina Andreevna died years ago. What happened? How it happened? An attack of appendicitis, acute peritonitis. The doctors could not save. Why are you interested? Well, in general, I'm a good friend of hers. What a shame I didn't have time to get to know her. And Ludmila Anatolyevna with her. That's it. At least everything is fine. Dasha was quite surprised. He knows her very well. She got up from the sofa with difficulty, turned on the light. It was already getting dark. My grandmother is also no longer in this world. She died a little later than mine, Mom. She is your grandmother, so you are Nina Andreevna's daughter. Yes, I know you. In fact, without really understanding what the girl wants to tell him by this, he asked cautiously, but where? Dasha replied with a smile. So many years ago you brought gifts to our orphanage. As I remember now, new tablets. Now Kirill looked at her with interest. It's exactly the same she. The only one of all the students who then sank into his soul when he handed her a gift. He immediately noticed that her eyes were almost the same as his, the same silvery gray and slightly almond-shaped. He also remembered that the girl looked surprised when she caught his gaze and also looked with interest. A touching coincidence. Years ago, Kirill was married to Lita, and in this moment of division, the anniversary of the union took place mainly thanks to the insistence of his father, who assured that Lita was the most suitable party for him, although Kirill. Then it practically made no difference who to marry in the hall. After all, he had already lost the main love of his life. So it doesn't matter now with whom. Genya, he still wanted to build a family, and since then, it wasn't who he was with even Lita. Kirill was worried that his wife at that time I hadn't gotten pregnant, yet I asked Lida, why can't you get pregnant? And how do I know? Lydia raised her eyebrows dissatisfiedly and we continued to put on makeup, but it doesn't work and damn Nuno. In fact, it's time for us to be examined to understand which. For testing and field to see his doctor friend on the morning of the day the results were ready. The doctor called Kirill and said he would like to speak to him privately. Kirill suspected something was wrong. Listen, my friend, that's the case in short. Lida has irreversible secondary infertility, the consequences of an abortion at a young age. She terminated her first pregnancy in early childhood. In general, she now cannot have children. Treated no, Kirill, this is irreversible damage to your reproductive system, which abortion was a critical feature. Lida knows about the fact that she is infertile. I suspect so. At least one gynecologist has probably already told him about the impossibility of having children, not knowing how he should inform his wife about this, knowing that Kirill spent the whole night in heavy thoughts. For on the one hand, he was indignant that Lydia was hiding such an important fact from him. On the other hand, after all, she is his wife. In addition, she is also influential, and in the event of a divorce, there will be a big scandal, which is still unknown how it will end for him. Kirill decided that for now he would not demand explanations from his wife. He saw Dasha for the first time. He had an idea that he hoped Lydia would approve of, but he was very wrong, dear. What other adoption did the orphanage try to convince her about? Also, who has the right to a family? For us, this is almost the only option to become parents. Even if we don't convince, there won't be these birth orphans in our house. Lida continued to be indignant. Kirill opposed her, but you can't give birth alone. Why did you get pregnant until something happened? This hasn't happened for years, and I even know why, Lida. You will never have children because of that abortion, as you know. The stunned Lida interrupted him. You have no right to condemn me. I had no other choice. I don't blame you at all. It's just that you have been deceiving me all this time. If I knew right away that you were infertile, then I'm filing for divorce. Lydia's scandal didn't want to let him go. She even tried to threaten him, but Kirill didn't care. He packed his bags and left, and then his visit to the Aramevsky orphanage took place. However, on subsequent visits, he simply gave Alevtina gifts, and he was leaving and did not communicate with the students. And now he came to the village where the Savlievs lived, came on work-related business, and suddenly Kirill wanted to know how Nina was now. Remembering the address, he resolutely headed to the house from them. Is she living well now with the woman he periodically remembers with nostalgia and can't forget? And here he is sitting on the sofa in the Savlievs' house, and sitting opposite him is a girl who is obviously his daughter, incredibly, and the girl is also pregnant. That is, soon he will become a grandfather, of course. I was ready for surprises when I got here, but it definitely wasn't like that. I really remembered you too. Kirill noticed that the girl was very upset about something. Looking at the bags at the door, he asked, have you been here recently? Yes, an hour ago. My name arrived Dasha, by the way. Nice to meet you. I'm Kirill. I also knew your mother and grandmother. Yes, Dasha was surprised. How interesting. Maybe we'll have some tea. Yes, of course, but no. I don't even know if he's here. I don't know when the neighbors last sent intelligence products, of course. Kirill had to quickly run to the store. After an hour, the house became much warmer because of the flooded stove, helping Dasha cover her with thoughts about how to start this conversation, how to explain to her why he wasn't there all that time. As it happened that she had to grow up without a father, because even he, oddly enough, didn't really know the answers to these questions. They had dinner, and Kirill thought that Dasha looked completely tired, even unhealthy. Feel good. No, it's okay. I'm just tired. Now you can quickly see the situation for yourself. A modest question. Where is the child's father? Dasha started crying again and told Kirill the sad story of her love, and also told him everything about her life, about how she was taken to an orphanage and how she lived after graduation. The The terrible moment for Kirill in his story was that I would snatch Eddie from his care of a girl straight from class to take her to her grandfather's house after hearing how Jaeger mocked her when he gave up. Calm down. Please, you can't be nervous now. You know, Dasha, I also have to tell you about my life. I was young a long time ago and I just finished my studies. I decided to become completely independent and no longer depend on my rich father. I didn't need his money. I went to work in a village in a factory. There I met a woman with whom we immediately had mutual love. I simply adored her. When we met, I was surprised that such a beautiful, cheerful, and intelligent woman was not yet married, so I thought that it was probably precisely because she was really very intelligent. She saw through people with all their vices, especially men. After a short pause, Kirill continued. She really sometimes became shy when we went somewhere together with her. It seemed that everyone looked at us and laughed. The fact is that she was years older than me, but she was completely indifferent to me. Of course there were evil tongues, teasing Kirill with bated breath. What is that? It turns out that this person is him. I understood everything correctly, and when I was about to propose marriage to her, my father immediately intervened. That she was not faithful to me, saying that an experienced person claims, and that person definitely cannot. To be mistaken, I refused to believe it, but my father somehow managed to trick my brain so much that I still left. At first, I immediately ran to my beloved to find out if my father was telling the truth that she was cheating me, and how did she know that I was faithful to her? She had doubts, didn't even talk to me, slammed the door in my face and told me never to come back to her again. We haven't been back since. I saw my father, by the way. His name is also Kirill. He was about to tell her the most important thing, but a neighbor suddenly appeared at the door. Came home. Raisa, visibly aged. Aunt Raya came in. Dasha ran towards her. Hello? Dasha can't be. I really thought that we choked Kirill. He took a look at Dasha. Well, he asked the neighbor, but you are the same experienced person. I remembered you. You came to my father several times then, and it was you who told he supposedly about Nina's betrayal. I started crying and read it. I was in a desperate situation. Life was difficult for me. My daughter was sick from drinking. My granddaughter had just started studying. But your father and I are distant relatives. But at first he himself tried to threaten Nika, that she left you, but she didn't listen to him. He offered me a mutually beneficial exchange. I have to separate you from Nina Andreevna for this. But how exactly am I supposed to do that? To your father? Tell Kirill that Ninka is cheating on him. Supposedly I know exactly what the nearest neighbor looks like. Your father praised me. He says it's a good idea. Well, to reward myself, dear. All my life I have carried this burden of guilt upon myself. Dasha was silent in shock. Without a father, she lived next door as a friend of our family, pretending to be Aunt Raya. You don't even know what to call you. Ah, she suddenly screamed, feeling a sharp pain in her stomach. Kirill ran up to her. How long have I been calling an ambulance, Aunt Raya? Looking at Dasha's ass, she was talking to herself about the lack of guilt for the child's death. They have all the cars. Now they left due to calls. Our call was answered. But when they arrive again, okay, I'll take your documents in my bag. Yes. Kirill threw the bag over his shoulder, took Dasha in his arms, and carefully carried her to his car. Nearby house, he shouted to Aunt Rai. The dirt road was bad and full of holes. Kirill drove with utmost care, and was worried that he would not be fast on such a road. The highway and added gasoline, and here our ambulance. Kirill stopped. The doctors took Dasha to the ambulance, plus in a previous situation. Critical. The doctor shouted into the phone that something needed to be done. Kirill went after the ambulance and immediately called his friend. The same one who discovered Ladina's infertility promised to call the hospital where this girl was taken and drop him off. They transport her to my clinic. Tell them that I have already arranged everything here. Kirill did everything as his friend told him. Finally, Dasha was transported to his friend's private clinic, but on the way she became very ill. Lyosha, I beg you to save she and the baby. And who is she to you? You are the father of her son. I am her father and this grandfather's future? Child, wow, I understand. I will do everything I can. More than an hour passed, but Kirill was waiting patiently. Finally, Lyosha came out of the operating room. You became a grandfather. Dasha's little girl was born with some problems, but nothing really terrible. However, the baby will have to be admitted to the pediatric intensive care unit for now, and the young mother needs to recover well. She is also in the ICU. Be careful for now. Kirill hugged his friend. Go home, Lyosha told him. You also need to rest well at home. He was met by Vera Semyonovna, their housekeeper. Hello, Kirill. Vasilyevic goes to dinner with his father in the living room. Yes. Vasily Fedorovich was sitting by the window in a wheelchair several years ago. He had a serious accident, and since then he has not been able to walk. Kirill's heart sank with pity for him because his father was always so active and an energetic businessman. Now, he has that. You spent almost all your time within four walls. You were late today. You seemed strange. Something happened, and something very important happened. I have a question for you. From my son's intonations, Vasily realized that the question was not a pleasant one. Well, ask. Did you know that Nina was pregnant? What kind of Nina? Right from the village. You understood perfectly who I was referring to. When you separated us, you knew that she was not expecting a child. No, child. I had one. I have no idea about that. Kirill sat tiredly on a chair. Today, by chance, it's a miracle that you can say that I found out that I have an adult daughter, Nina, who died a long time ago from an illness, and this is Dasha's name. Our daughter was assigned to her grandfather's house shortly after that, and her grandmother died. But now, Dasha, after a difficult birth, is in the ICU because a guy like me back then took care of her son and ran away. Yes, it never occurred to me that Nina might be pregnant. She was no longer old enough to conceive at years old. Dad is even getting pregnant, son? Sadly, tears appeared in Vasily's eyes. It would be better if she didn't show up anyway. You would have broken up the next morning. Kirill went to his office. Nastia, make me coffee now. Kirill Vasilyevic. While he was drinking coffee, the secretary told him about candidates who wanted to get one. I work in their company, as you said. His name is Boyarinov. Yegor Petrovich. Kirill frowned. Wait, this is not Trino's son, who months ago sold us one of his companies. Don't think that I am interfering in my own business. Things didn't get better for Boyarinov. Probably his son decided that we have a more promising workplace. That's how. Kirill smiled silently. Nastinka, make an appointment with him in the cafe today at Bay. I probably won't go back to the office today. Are you well? You are a little strange today. Nastia has been working for him for years, and always unmistakably caught the slightest changes in his mood. Kirill smiled. Okay. I'll tell you what the problem is, but only in secret with you. I'm sure you won't talk. Yesterday, in one day, I became one father and a grandfather. How is it? Nastia asked in surprise. Kirill told her in general the features of your story. This is just a kind of series, and don't tell everything. Nastia, I was sent so many other things for my daughter and granddaughter I need to buy. Kirill bought a lot of gifts for his girls and went to meet the boyars in the cafe. The youngest did not come alone with. He was your son, Peter. It seems that their business is really not going well when it came to hiring. Igor asked. Then Kirill Vasilyevic, will you take me to your house first? Tell me, Igor, is the name Dasha Savalyeva familiar to you? Igor was surprised, and as for her, now she works as someone other than a cleaner. She told you that the idiot complained about me. A provincial woman was impregnated by someone and insisted that supposedly it was about me. That he said all this with a caustic smile. And Peter nodded in agreement with Yegor. Kirill sighed. Most of all, I would like to go now. Your face, but I don't want to get my hands dirty. I am Dasha's father. He stupefied. Boyar, you were sitting on Razin's mouth. Idiot, how can you not know that this is Kirill's daughter? How should I know that she is from an orphanage, which means he is ours, and recently maybe she didn't get pregnant by you? I'm sure such an enthusiastic idiot definitely couldn't cheat on me. You should act immediately. We need to bond with this influential family. Kirill sat next to Dasha's bed, and the nurse looked in surprise at the pile of gifts he brought. Why so many? Yes. It is not much. I will still choose the most necessary things. Buy. Bye. Home as you say. Let's even have fun. Kirill. Dasha finally woke up through the hazy veil before her eyes. She still saw the visitor. Kirill. It's you. What's wrong with my daughter? Everything is fine with her. You have become the mother of a wonderful girl. Kirill affectionately stroked her hand. Life will be completely different. Forgive me. I had no idea about you. I always wanted to have children, and now it is turning out I didn't know. It's been years since I became a father and my father. Forgive me, it's hard too. But he wanted what was best for me. Happiness. He sincerely believed that Nina was no match for me because of the age difference, yes. And people constantly spread all kinds of gossip about her and me, and then Reisa helped me, and her mother's character was ours. She helped. I didn't even listen to myself when I wanted to know if my father told me the truth. But now I will do everything to make my daughter and granddaughter happy. And he said with a smile, recently it seemed to me that I was still young and you became a grandfather. Dasha also smiled. You are still young and not at all a grandfather. That is a grandfather, of course, but he is very young. But Dasha fell asleep again, yes, and the time for the visit was over. He tiptoed out of the room. Kirill, here you are, where your friend Lyosha was walking towards you. Something with the child was scared. Kirill, yes, why did you get so excited, my friend? Are you nervous lately? Let's introduce you to someone you mean with your granddaughter. Yes, that's clear. I'll just show it here. Well, at least look without seeing this little one. Princess Kirill looked at her for a long time and couldn't get enough of the wonderful girl, her own granddaughter. Baby, for the sake of you and your daughter, I'm on. Everything is ready. Everything is a kilometer away. What I couldn't do for Dasha and Nina for my daughter's discharge from the hospital, I prepared it for her and my grandson from my family. I still didn't know what name Dasha chose for the child, but I did not interfere. I let her decide for herself what to name her little angel, Vera Semyonovna. Upon learning that a child would live in Kirill Vasilyevich's house, she was very happy. God, children's laughter could finally sound. This house? She willingly offered to help Kirill renovate the room for his young mother. Sometimes Vera Semyonovna even argued with him about the design and furniture, and he understood that her decision was more correct. The room turned out to be a great place. In the closets, there was barely enough space for a pile of women's and children's clothes. Sometimes Vasily Fedorovich came to the bedroom door on a cart, but he just looked quietly and also left quietly at the end of the second week. Lyosha called Kirill and said that he was ordering Dasha. What Kirill said to his father, granddaughter and great-granddaughter, I probably better not understand. Dasha's eyes again after I'm teaching business. She's unlikely to be pleased to look at me. Just talk nice to her. Of course Kirill understood that Dasha. It was unlikely that she would be willing to talk to Vasily, but he wanted to believe that they would still be up to the task. They were both her family and could not believe that she was returning not to her native village, but to a new one. Home, rich and beautiful, a new life much better than she had before. She was a little scared at how quickly, but of course she was happy. Before being discharged, she wore new clothes that her father brought for her. And everything is comfortable. It fits well. Thank you, Dad. She mentally thanked him. However, Dasha just started calling him Dad. In her thoughts out loud, she still did not dare to call him such an unusual word for her. Father, when they brought Elena to her, that's how she called her daughter. Dasha almost laughed at the girl. The luxurious lace. Father, you chose such magnificent clothes for our princess. As soon as she came out of sick leave, you took Kirill to her immediately and hugged her tightly. Beautiful. She smiled at Dasha, holding a bouquet of flowers and a bunch of balloons in her hands. Meet Nastia, my assistant and great friend. Accept the child. Grandpa with a smile. Nastia told him he was nervous, and who else was he a little afraid of? But when he accepted the little package from the nurse's hands, he almost burst into tears. Such a baby. Dasha smiled. She will grow up. And Nastia sat behind the wheel and Kirill sat in the back seat with Elena in his arms. Everything is ready for her arrival at my house. I hope you like it. Then entering the room prepared for her, Dasha exclaimed with joy that the beautiful Vera Semyonovna, smiling, told her that Kirill also ordered the garden with this A greenhouse for you and your granddaughter to organize for you to walk there. Dasha couldn't believe her luck. He is a wonderful person. Vera Semyonovna suddenly became serious. Wonderful, yes. Don't be mad at them. Something happened in the corridor. There was heard the creaking of the wheels of the wheelchair. Vera Semyonovna immediately left and entered the room. Vasily Fedorovich entered. Let me in, of course. Dasha immediately realized that in front of her was her grandfather. It was he who did everything so that her parents would separate. Vasily handed Dasha a bouquet of white roses. This is for you. Please accept my congratulations. Thank you. I'm also giving Elena a bank account with such a large amount that she will never need anything again. Vasily turned the card around and was about to leave the room. It seemed to him that Dasha only tolerated his presence out of politeness. Vasily Fedorovich, stay. You don't want to meet your great-granddaughter. I want to. But I thought you were against it. No, you are. I don't mind at all. Vasily curled up in the crib, but the height of its sides was too high for that he could see anything sitting there. Dasha picked up her daughter and laid her on top of him. Looking at Elena with his hands, he could barely hold back his tears. It seemed to him that he had never experienced such joy since the birth of his son. Dasha, thank you. Vera Semyonovna came to see you there. Who was surprised. She didn't understand anything. She followed Vera and threw Vasily's slice into the room. These are the types of guests who can come to this house specifically for her. Alyonka peacefully Pasova. This grandfather was clearly angry. Kirill standing in his arms in the room, and next to him Igor. Where did you come from here? I finally met you. Let Pavo come to you, and you were in no hurry to come to my house until you found out that Dasha is my daughter. Without paying attention to these words, the guy exclaimed, honey, I realize that you are very dear to me and our daughter also wants to make you an official marriage proposal. Igor stretched out his hands for hugs and Dasha looked at him perplexed. He seriously thinks that she will run to hug him, she said. And Marinado knows that you will marry me. Marinka. What does Igor have to do with offended sniffling? Our affair with her was a mistake. Yes, mistakes v. Life happens and I also have my main mistake. It was you who played the triumphant role in Kirill's face, but I am the father of your child. This fact cannot be left aside from the biological fact. Yes, but you can easily and you will bother me. My father will ask you a good question. Yegor looked at him with fear. The stern character of his father Kirill Vasilyevich was well known in his business circles. If suddenly something really didn't seem enough, he indignantly threw a bouquet on the floor, which he mumbled in front of him. Well, to hell with you. No one. You have a trailer. You won't need the guy. He ran out the door, and Dasha sighed with relief, and the king in the room. The silence in the room was broken by Vasily's satisfied voice. That's what I understand. Our girl is everything. Like your father and grandfather.